I had some family that was here, and I was living in LA at the time, and I just wanted to be near, my mom and my sister, so I moved here. But my mom, after Katrina, bought a house in the Austin area, and so when she retired from work, she moved into that house, so that's how I kind of wound up here. I'm just a very curious person in general. And one of the things I'm mostly curious about is the human condition and why, in the process of how we arrive at ideas and thought. So I guess it's always this deep dive into why do we do the things we do and what kind of silences do we hold on to, do we enforce on other people and on ourselves. So my work is always this deep diving into why we are who we are and why we do what we do. Is storytelling a part of my work? I don't really see myself as a storyteller, and I don't think I'm telling any stories. I think I'm more of asking questions. Because I think the stories have already happened, and I'm more, interested in why. Why did this story happen? So it's more of me asking questions. So I'm really interested in art history. So taking classes in college, art history always has these disguised symbolisms. And so in a lot of my work, it's heavily influenced by that iconography. So that gilding, the dark blues and the reds and these very brilliant colors. And those themes, because I grew up Catholic, and so most people don't realize that New Orleans is heavily steeped in Catholic iconography and history. And so by going to church and seeing all these saints and seeing all of these, these reverent rituals that we pay to these church and to these idols, my work takes that idea and turns people into these reverent beings instead of giving it to people that have long gone and asking the question if, what if we took ourselves this reverent, will we still be doing the things we're doing or processing things the way we are? So my work is really steeped into this disguised symbolism and this iconography that I grew up with. Basically, I'm asking a question and I want them to ask questions. I think what I want the viewer to do is to study and be inquisitive and ask questions. So I want them to look at the work and say, why did she put this mark here? Why is this gilded? Why does this person have a halo? I want them to ask questions, and I want them to ask what could have happened to this person, and do I see myself in this? And I think that's more of what I want to convey is what pain or what triumph or what joy did this person live through? So it's more of, I always want people to ask questions when they're looking at my work. I want them to always kind of be inquisitive about the work, because I don't want them to walk into it and think, oh, I understand this. I actually don't want it to be completely relatable. I want it to be sort of this question of well, what is this? Why is this painted this way, So that's the kind of, because sometimes I paint and I'm like, what is this? Why did I make this image this way? And so I want people to have that same feeling, because I don't want people to feel like they can't question it. I want it to be questioned. Everything should be questioned. Sure. So I feel like the questions that I'm asking, or in a lot of my work, there's memories as well. The memories that I am interrogating, they are cyclical. They come back. These questions continue to come back. These memories continue to come back, because that's what memories are. If they didn't replay in your mind, they wouldn't be called a memory. They would be forgotten. And the circle represents how these thoughts always exist and these thoughts never go away. And it's also organic. Painting on something that's square is not organic. I haven't seen a square plant. I haven't seen a square leaf, right? And so, our pupils are round, right? Our valves in our hearts, these tubes, they're round. When you cut them and you look at the intersection that you've cut. And so I think the circle is a more organic form that talks to the viewer. So I just like the circle. I've realized that all of my life I've been wanting the freedom to ask questions. And so when I'm in the studio and I'm giving myself this floor, this freedom to ask even myself, like, why do you do these things? Like, are they truly of you, or are you doing it because this is what you've been taught, this is what society says you're supposed to do as a person inhabiting a certain body and a certain culture? Like, are you supposed to do these things, or do you want to do these things? And so in my work, I've realized that I am more comfortable when I'm able to say, I don't know, and I'm asking a question. And that's where I feel more comfortable, when I can fully stand in something and say, I do not know, and I'm comfortable with that. Or I do know, and I know because I've asked myself why I'm doing this. And in that search of why I'm doing it, I realize, oh, because it is truly me. And so those are the things that I've been able to uncover with the work. Yeah, finances and space. I think that, I can say with wholeheartedly, because I have, asked myself this question, I can create what I want to create. If I have the time, the space, and I have the money, I can create what it is I want to create. And I think this is with most artists, is like, I would love to make an 8-foot round work, but where am I going to make that at, right? I need the studio space to explore that. I need the studio space to explore delicate materials that I want to use. I love illuminated manuscripts, and I need the space to be able to deal with delicate paper and to do book binding and have all this clean space. But the challenges are, I don't have that space. The challenges are, I don't have, that finance that I need to be able to explore and go to these places and understand the art of true gilding, the art of, I even want to get into stained glass, because, once again, as a child going to church, you are of, so big, but these windows that are just illuminated with all these colors, they're so large. And so I want to make my own, but where do I have a soldering studio, So my challenge is that my ideas are bigger than my pocket and my, the walls that I live in. So those are the challenges I face, is that I have to kind of stunt my growth and my practice due to, those limitations that I have. Okay, so my process changes a lot, because my first foray into the world of art was through writing. So I went to school and I studied playwriting. And then I was like, this is great. And then I was like, but I want something else. So I went into photography, and I was like, okay, this is great, but I need to say something else. And then I went into ceramics, and I was like, okay, this is great, but I need to say something else. So I'm able to adapt what it is I want to say and what I want to explore and what I want to question by moving to another art form. And so the process changes with each art form. Like, I can't approach photography the same way that I approach ceramics. And with ceramics, honestly, it actually made me better at my draftsmanship, drawing, because I was able to create a form. I knew what that form was supposed to be like in drawing. And so my process, the thought process, the genesis of the thought is the same. The genesis of the thought is like, I have a question. But then it goes, well, what's the best mode of art form to answer or question this thing? Oh, it's ceramics. Oh no, it's painting. And so then it changes with each different form. So I can't, when I first started painting, I was just using canvas as traditional artists use. And then I was like, yeah, this is great, painting and saturating this thing in this color. I was like, but I want it to be this color. I want it saturated in this color. I'm like, what can hold color the way I want it to? I was like, oh, paper. And I was like, no, that's not it. And then I was like, wood, because wood then also has its own, saturation properties, almost like paper, because paper is of the tree, right? But then also wood has this grain where it tells its story of where it's been. So I can't erase the grain. And I'm like, well, I don't want to erase it. Let me let this thing talk with me as I'm making this work. And so it lends itself beautifully to the work that I'm creating now. But, the genesis of the thought is the same, but the process of what art form I want to work in changes. Like, there's some abstraction in the figurative pieces that I have, because I still love that idea. But yeah, mostly what I'm working now is figurative, because that's what I needed to question what I'm questioning, which is my memories, So, It's funny you asked that because I was wrapped up with all the paintings I wanted to do for this install. And literally Sunday, I was like, oh, I want to do 3 more paintings. So I did 3 more paintings that are like a 30-inch round that are pictures of me when I was a kid. And my dad was this, he can fix anything, but this time he was working on photo booths, so he was fixing photo booths. And so whenever we would go with him when he fixed photo booths, we would take pictures. So I have these like pictures from like 1990 of me as a kid in a photo booth. And I don't know why I chose that, but when I looked at it and I was like, oh, she didn't even know. Like this 5-year-old me did not know what it was she was capable of. So if I could go back and tell myself anything, I would say, it's okay to ask questions. And the reason that people are afraid of your questions is because they don't ask themselves questions. So do not feel like you cannot question everything and anything, because I think there's power in asking why things work the way they do. And it tells a lot about people when you ask questions and they can't answer and they get defensive. And so instead of as a child taking that on to yourself and saying something must be wrong with me, know that it's okay that you ask questions. And sometimes people don't have the answers, and that's okay too. And that's what I would tell myself is it's all right. Ask all the questions you can, because there's power in knowing that this process maybe isn't for you. So that's what I would tell my younger self.